Howdy, folks. Welcome back to another exciting week and another exciting episode. This is Project Liberation with your host, Mr. Chris Blau, and I am his faithful co host, Mr. Rod.
Rod Pimentel.
That's
Exactly.
right.
Welcome. We've got Liberation Lighthouse under the Project Liberation umbrella because fuck it, we're all going to be free.
On tonight's episode, yes, it is Christmas Eve 2021, and we're going to be talking about getting over the holiday blues. Um, it's a special kind of episode, I guess. We're not going to try to um,
So here's the thing.
psychoanalyze too many things.
We're
I hope.
it's going to be a playful episode, I think, but also a real episode. So
Mhm.
our beautiful Rod has created the presentation outline to keep us on track because it definitely helps and matters, right? But more than anything, like if I can just precede all of this, we're doing this show. It's Christmas Eve. Like we're doing this show very intentionally because both of us have spent plenty of Christmases and holidays alone. And I didn't mean whether we were physically alone or not. It was like we could be in a group of, a big party, 30 people, and both of us have felt that. I feel it as a sinking feeling, and it's almost like everything gets pushed out, and my stomach drops, and I just felt so alone that sometimes some really dark thoughts would come. And so if we can be just this little beacon of light, right? Lighthouse Liberation, Liberation Lighthouse. We can be this little beacon of light. We're going to share some tips and stuff along the way, but a lot of this is also just like the experiences, the stories of what Rod and I have had, what's helped us through, and why we're here, and what can help you.
Alrighty. So to start the presentation, first off, it's perfectly normal. That's what I want to lead with. It's okay. Elvis sang about it. We're here to tell you. There's a ton of reasons why your days may not be as merry and bright as everybody else seems to be. It could be a jam-packed social calendar, deadlines at work. It could be the loss of loved ones, sunless winter days, or combinations, or all of the above. It's it's okay. It's the human experience. It's what we're here to do. The stats, according to the American Psychological Association, 38% of people surveyed said that stress increased during the holiday season, which can lead to physical illness, depression, anxiety, and substance misuse. The reasons given: lack of time, financial pressures, gift giving, family gatherings. To make matters worse, the National Alliance on Mental Illness noted that 64% of individuals living with mental illness, such as PTSD, depression, suicide ideation, yada, 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 have felt that their condition worsened around the holidays.
So the reason for sharing these stats, right? So stats are one thing, they're numbers and everything else. It's funny because I'll often use them, and Rod's the one who's like, all right, come on, let's simplify this. But I'm going to
Yeah.
simplify it this time. Like the reason being is just all the ways that we can show you and help you know that you're not alone. Like it's our experiences, what we've been through, the fact that stats say the exact same thing, so the mind can get the same message, right? But what it comes down to is you're not broken. You're not wrong in some way. You're not the oddball out. Nobody else feels this, and the world just shrinks in on you. This is
Oddly
many,
enough,
many,
this
many
is
people go through this.
yeah, this is perfectly normal.
Yeah.
You got two guys right here telling you it's happened to us, right? And sometimes it's a little bit easier than others. Some years are better than others. Some years it's not, and it's perfectly normal. Okay, there's nothing wrong with you. You are just human. Most of you. So, issue: you're lacking the holiday spirit. You're being surrounded by cheeriness that can be stigmatized when you don't feel the same level of enthusiasm. The pressure to be social, happy, and present can make it difficult to speak up if you don't feel that way. And you may also feel left out if your spiritual traditions aren't the dominant ones on display this time of year. Um, depending on what your religious background might be, you may feel like the odd man out. And sometimes the spiritual traditions may be a little bit anti-LGBT. Is what
Hmm.
comes to mind. I've known a couple of people that had a hard time during the holidays because
Hmm.
their families had their Christmas mass or their religious experiences happening this time of year. And unfortunately, some of these religions are not very LGBT kind. So this is definitely something that has been noted. Um,
Yeah.
but what
And
can you do about it?
well, I mean, just to that for a moment, like holiday spirit. Like, Rod, when's the last time that you like truly felt the holiday spirit?
That's a tough one. Having gone through 20 some odd years of PTSD and just starting to come out of that shell,
Hmm.
um, for myself, I don't think I ever felt it. I grew up in a very, at a young age, I grew up in a very Catholic type home
Hmm.
where, um, in Mexico,
Hmm.
where my grandmother, and my grandparents, my parents were all very poor. And you were lucky to get a little bag with peanuts and a couple of hard candy. And
Hmm.
I remember one year, I got a little fire truck,
Mm.
and
Mm.
I was probably the happiest. Now I guess I might have been like 4
Okay.
when that happened. So yeah, yeah, that was a very long time ago. So
And so, like, what? How do you normally feel during the holidays?
again, growing up later in life, I realized that. Well, first off, having that religious background didn't really allow for Santa Claus.
Hmm.
And even if it did, Santa Claus would hit the other kids with, Ataris and Nintendos and
Uh,
PlayStations and expensive toys. And, my family wasn't lucky enough to be visited by Santa Claus because, well, we didn't have a chimney, right?
mm.
So I didn't have the American experience, if you would, with tons of gifts under the tree or anything like that. Um, but somehow I was okay with it. Being a resilient kid, um, you just kind of realize that traditions are kind of sometimes mixed up and made up along the way. So,
Definitely. Yeah.
you know, um, so the idea of this fat white guy making toys all year just to come and give to me, on Christmas night, never really made sense to me.
Yeah.
Um, but but yeah, yeah, when you go back to school and everybody else got all these nice, expensive electronics or toys or whatnot, and here you are. It's like, oh well, I got socks or whatever. Um,
Something you needed, not
yeah,
like the
yeah.
pleasure thing. Yeah.
It deflated a little bit of the Christmas thing. So
Mm.
my Christmases were not as exciting as others, I guess.
Okay. Yeah, for me, it was less that. So I was fortunate, like, middle class family. So, like, presents and everything else, the whole like normal like uh, mid America type of
I
experience.
like how you said normal.
Yeah, normal mid
there's
America type
there's plenty
experience.
of white kids that I met that were also very poor that Santa skipped their house too.
Yeah, well, I guess what I mean by normal, and I'll change that word is
Middle class.
uh, middle class, but not just that. It's like what is normally portrayed, right?
Yeah.
That's what I mean. Not quote normal. But for me, it was moving away from home. And then I just never really fully got into the holidays. Like even when I was in relationships, like the holidays were okay, but there was something that wasn't there. It's like I began to numb myself to them because I missed people so much. Right. Like we talked earlier this week about the holidays that are memorable for me. And it was the ones where it was a family gathering. And something that has begun to come back for me a little bit is like here in Utah, where I am. Some friends have Friendsgiving. They get together for Thanksgiving, and it began to bring that spirit back because it began to be people who actually wanted to be together, coming together, but there was care, love, conversations. I love conversations, right? So stuff that would be there and enjoy that. And yet, um, like coming around Christmas, one is gifts have never been really big for me. Like it doesn't, like they aren't my turn on. Although I do like the joy somebody gets when they receive a gift that they truly love. You can see that light up, right? Like that's joyful. Or like somebody giving me something that is like from the heart, like usually a card or something written, or you just know it was chosen that way. It can, but most of the time it was, I don't know. Like it was just a time that I began to turn off, and I would put my attention towards work. I'd put my attention towards all these other things, and then just to be blunt and honest and to share with everybody out there, around this time, my parents passed in a kind of a dramatic way about 14 years ago. And so coming around this time was always that mix of emotions, right? Like we can have those mix of emotions for a lot of reasons. But that mix of emotions would come of like, oh, it's a happy time. And I feel all these other emotions with it. And that made me feel so separate from other people. And I think that's the same, whether it's trauma, PTSD, we just don't like the holidays, don't enjoy the people that you get to hang out around with, um, just feel isolated and alone, all of those things, like that discord of what you're feeling and experiencing, which, like Rod said earlier, is perfectly normal. We've done this. And what everybody else seems to be feeling, right, just creates that sense of aloneness and isolation. So sharing a deeper version of why we're sharing this and some of our experiences, because like it's not bullshit. Like we feel it, we know it, we've lived it. And for me, and I'll let Rod speak for himself, but for me, I'm actually beginning to find a different joy again in the holidays. I'm actually beginning to look forward to it a bit. It's like a shift. It's not there. I'm not like, fuck yeah, Christmas. But it's shifting. And very intentionally. There's some choices I'm making this year in what I do. And that's rewiring and rewriting what this season means to me.
And we had discussed this earlier before the show, and yeah, no, I am of the same mind where I don't know if I'll ever be the yay hoorah, Christmas type guy. However, um, getting to experience the excitement in my kid,
Mm.
it just it's changing how I view this holiday season. It really is.
So you're
Um,
finding like a different reason to have joy in it than what is.
yes, yes, and I'm that horrible dad that already told his kid that Santa isn't exactly real. But I did let her know that Santa is the idea of giving
Mm.
something to somebody
Mm.
for no good reason. You know, you don't expect anything in return. That ability to bring joy in others, and I think she understands. I hope she understands. I'm sure she probably might be talking to a therapist 20 years down the road saying, Daddy killed Santa for me. But I
And
hope,
gave me the gift of understanding a version, at
I
least a
hope,
small bit of unconditional love, like giving without the expectation of receiving. Like
I
that's
hope, I hope that is my hope. My other fear and reason for doing that is I've heard stories from other people that I've met over the years how they felt betrayed and lied to once they found out that
oh,
Santa wasn't real.
gotcha.
It's kind of like, oh, my parents lied to me, and I was I was made a fool of for however many years
Mhm.
until somebody at school or whatever told me, and I really never want to lie to my kids.
Mm.
I think that's good or bad. I never want to tell a little white lie or twist the truth or anything with my kid. I want my
Mm.
kid to even if it's a difficult situation, I want her to be able to wrap her head around things and
Mm.
realize that yeah, sometimes the world isn't fair. It's like Santa doesn't skip the Jewish neighborhoods. It's the poor kid that didn't get any gifts isn't because he's on the naughty list.
Hmm.
That kind of thing. It's like poor people aren't bad. You know,
No.
um, yeah. So that's my reason.
Mm.
So before I sidetrack a little too far, what can we do about it? What can we do about these feelings over the holidays? Well, first, we got to recognize that you don't have to force yourself to be happy. You don't have to force yourself to put on this mask, this happy face to go in there. It's good to acknowledge your feelings, and if your feelings are not that of joy, it's okay.
Feel
It's
them.
okay.
Feel it. I'm gonna actually
Feel 'em.
yeah, like I
Yeah.
know that I'm gonna be the disruptive force in this entire thing like today. And fuck it, yeah, I'm just the disruptive force. So last year for this time, I experienced so I would feel depressions at times in my life, and starting in early December last year, I began to feel a depression coming on. And normally I would fight that. Like I don't want to be this way. Judge it. What the fuck? Everybody's happy. I'm not happy. And strangely, I found an acceptance with it last year. Right? I was like, well, who cares what everybody else is feeling? This is what I'm feeling, and it's not bad, wrong, anything else, good, bad. Doesn't matter. It's just a thing. And I didn't get to that point until maybe about 3 days into the depression. Lasted a couple of weeks, and strangely, when I began to accept it, so what Rod's talking about here is acceptance. When I began to accept it, um, this is going to sound weird. You guys might think I'm a little off my rocker, but I began to enjoy it. Like it's such a weird thing. Like I began to enjoy depression, right? Like I never had before, but it was a different relationship because I wasn't again like suffering is being in one place and then wanting to be in another. And that creates this bridge of suffering. And the larger that divide is, the greater the suffering is. And so I essentially, by accepting it and just being with it, I alleviated my suffering and judgment, which then it began to feel like a heavy blanket, right? But also like I just felt like, oh, it's like kind of like a snow day or a sick day where I don't feel sick, and I just get to sit in bed with my little hot cocoa and drink my hot cocoa, and I'm like, I don't want to do anything, I don't want to talk to anybody, but I don't feel bad for it, and I don't feel guilty, and I kind of fucking like this.
Well, I'm guessing you went from what normally is considered depression into something called more melancholy. Where
Yeah,
um, yeah, it's
yeah,
not a bad thing.
and my energy levels didn't increase. I didn't all of a sudden want to go out and start jumping around and doing things, but
Yeah,
the experience of it was, and this is again like you just realize you're not alone. You're feeling this way. It's okay to feel this way. We're humans. We have the full range of experiences and emotions. It made a world of difference. I actually, again, you can hear it in my voice now. I looked back and I'm like, that was actually kind of a good Christmas.
yeah, yeah. You allowed yourself to be you.
Yes, thank you. You distilled it down. Like I allowed myself to be me and accepted myself as me. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So, other fun tricks while you're dealing with depression: avoid numbing or yourself by using alcohol or other substances, which might worsen your anxiety and your depression. And if possible, surround yourself with people who feel similarly. Again, similar. So, misery loves company. Invite all your depressed friends to come on over, bring their blankets, and drink hot cocoa.
Yeah, but definitely don't
So,
drink Kool-Aid. If somebody starts offering Kool-Aid at that party, definitely be like, no, no, I'm out.
yeah, don't trust that Jones guy. Okay, so celebrate your traditions, make new ones. If you're sad, that's okay. It's like have a gloomy Christmas and be happy with that.
Yeah.
You know. Uh, all right. So here's one that both Chris and I were speaking of. If you're overwhelmed by grief and loss, so if you're living with grief, loss, trauma, loneliness, it can be easy to compare your situation to others, which can increase the feelings of loneliness or sadness. Take time to check in with yourself and your feelings and have realistic expectations on how the holiday season will be. So if you're dealing with loss or grief, gently remind yourself that as circumstances change, traditions will as well. Chris, did you want to add anything to this?
Oh no, I don't even like. I don't have anything to add. Don't know what you're talking about. Don't
Yeah,
experience grief in the holidays. Yeah,
not at all.
like I shared earlier. So it was actually. I'll just be specific. It was the 28th of December, and my parents are loving, like great people, but tumultuous relationship ended in a very tragic way. Um, and it was a surprise. I did not expect it coming. Not in that way. And I remember that morning getting a call from my grandmother, and as soon as I answered the phone, I didn't know what had happened, but I answered the phone and heard just the first breath of a word from her, and like just everything sank. And ever since, like that just added to like the holidays already for me were that time of I was a workaholic and I'm putting all my energy into work and okay, great. The world's quiet. I can get a whole bunch of things done, which was kind of helpful for the achievement based life that I was in at the time, but really wasn't helpful for relationships and all the rest of it. And so it just took that to another level. I didn't want to feel in the holidays. I didn't want to feel the grief. I didn't want this unconscious, because I hadn't for a long time brought up the conscious, this unconscious missing my parents and missing the joyous days. Like one of my favorite holidays, uh, thinking back, was this Thanksgiving that went back to my parents' house, and Rod was there and his wife Jen was there. I can't remember if you were married at the time. Yeah, you were, because, and then we had his in-laws there as well. And it was just like nothing like out of the ordinary crazy happened, but it was just that holiday that you think back and it's like, man, such great connection. And so that was like gone for a long time. And it's only honestly, if I've gotten to a point where I could cope and I could tolerate. Like that is the point that I'd gotten to, and which was good enough. The coping and tolerating was way better than the depth of grief and not wanting to deal with my emotions and the holes and everything else that would come before then. So it was a huge step. And then this year, I'm actually choosing on that day to sit down and create new memories and new patterns and hold ceremony with myself. What I mean by ceremony is just sit, meditate, be present, and I'm rewriting what that day means. Like for a long time, that day has meant it was the dark day that my parents passed, and I'm rewriting it this year as this is the day that I stand in my own power and I change the pattern that my parents lived. And I create that new pattern within myself and I exude that pattern into all the relationships of my life. And I take the lessons that I've learned back into humanity so that they have purpose and I have purpose and we all are better. Right. And it is literally, it's like literally shifting the emotion from a day that I dread to a day I'm looking forward to. It's got meaning, it's got purpose, right? And so
Yeah.
I'm sharing that story mostly because I do believe we have this full ability once we've gone through what we need to go through, once we've learned what we need to learn, once we've felt all the emotions, gone through the grief cycle that we shared before, forget the episode number, but whatever episode it was. And you get to a point beyond acceptance, like acceptance was that point in it. You get to a point beyond acceptance of gratitude. And I've felt that for other things in my life. I never believed I might actually find it for this moment in this season and this tragedy. And I'm on that cusp. I believe we can feel gratitude. And I share that again. I'm using this word a lot because we can rewrite and not control. We can rewrite and guide our experiences and find meaning even in the darkest times, and that meaning and that purpose and that why, right? Like, I think it was, I remember who it was it Nietzsche who said, you can endure any how if you have a strong enough why. So yeah, like that's where grief is going for me this year. And it is absolutely possible for you as well.
Yeah. For those of you out there that don't know our background, Chris's mom was pretty much a second mother to a motley crew of teenagers when we were growing up. She took in every oddball, including myself and some of my friends, and fed us, told us where the cereal was, offered advice, offered medical assistance. She was a nurse,
Hmm.
um, and it was one of those few adults that kind of give it to you straight. And there's a whole group of people out there that are living their best lives thanks to her. So,
Oh, yeah.
um, yeah. And even after I'd grown up and had come back from the service, her husband Rob had retired from the service himself, and she recognized PTSD, and she took it upon herself to take me on a very long road trip to just kind of make sure everything was okay on my end.
Mhm.
Yeah, always always had our best interest in her heart. So she will be missed.
Mhm. She has been.
Yeah,
And yet she, like you said, there are many people living much better lives as a result. And so she also lives on.
all right. So sorry, I lost my place here.
No, do like, feel that emotion. Like, you got to practice what we preach.
Yeah.
Feel that emotion.
Okay. You're liking the holiday spirit. You're overwhelmed by grief and loss. So what can you do about it? Let's see. If holiday observances seem inauthentic right now, don't do them. During this time, connect with and plan to check with a support group, a therapist, a faith community, or friends who understand.
Mhm.
As much as possible, let your loved ones know that they are that they can support you, whether it's helping you with shopping or meeting up for a regular walk. Often, people want to help, but just don't know how, what to say, or where to start.
Mhm.
So you're feeling pressure to participate in activities, and you don't want any part of them. Well, fuck them. We all have our own personal history with the holidays. We dream about the ways that the holidays are supposed to be. We've all seen those holiday. What is it? Lifetime movies. A random woman from the city goes out
Mhm.
to the country and meets
Mm.
Mr. Right, and he's just always there waiting for her. Right.
Yep.
So we get caught up in wanting to do all of that, but we can aim to set a more realistic expectation for ourselves and for others.
But I'm going to step in here, and,
Yeah.
and I believe that we're going to agree. But like, realistic expectation is like honor yourself, right? If you need to stay in, stay in. If you need to go out but stay on the sidelines, go out and stay on the sidelines. But that is different. Like, honoring yourself is different than just isolating,
Yeah.
right? Rod and I have had plenty of experience with isolating. My early days in isolating were using workaholicism as an excuse for isolating and being too busy and just like into my own little world. And then sometimes it would just be isolating. I've got a remote property, and I would just go there and turn off the world for periods of time. Helpful, but again, it goes down to your intention. Was I honoring myself? Sometimes. Was I also just avoiding and then wallowing in a really deep pit of despair? Sometimes. 100%. The only reason I bring that up is sometimes when we isolate and that pit of despair is there and we're not reaching out and talking to people who are willing to listen and care, um, then we can begin to sink a little lower and a little lower, and the dark thoughts come in. And so just know thyself, honor thyself. Even if you're isolating, reach out to somebody and talk to them and just feel a little bit of connection. We're humans. We don't have to be the fucking life of the party, but we're also built that connection is important to our nervous system, to our emotions, to our mind, to our body. Everything responds to that.
Yeah. It's funny that you mentioned drowning yourself in your work. And yes, that is looked upon as something good for whatever reason in our culture. I'm reminded of a quote of somebody that you spoke to, who suffers from PTSD, who's afraid to slow down because if they slow down, they start to think, and they don't want to think.
Yeah, 100%. We can become aware of that, right?
Yeah,
That ever running, whether it's the holidays or not, is a way to just prevent feeling something,
yeah,
having the thoughts that we know that we're going to avoid. And that's where all the therapies that we've talked about so far and more that we have coming up after the holidays, that's why they're there, because they help you get to that point where you can think and feel those things, but in thinking and feel, you release them, right? I'm just going to use the example again. Workaholism, could not tolerate the holidays, deep depressions, suicidal thoughts, to finding a way to tolerate and to cope, to now finding and rewiring and having a completely different meaning on it. It's been a journey. It hasn't been easy, but it is absolutely possible.
So what can we do about it? One, accept your limitations. Be patient with others. Which sometimes when you have PTSD, I find myself to be very impatient with others. It's a tough one. Try to see others' points of view and recognize that we're all feeling at least a little stressed, especially this time of the year. Prioritize the most important activities or schedule get togethers for after the holidays. If you're feeling overwhelmed by social obligations and what others are asking for, learn how to be comfortable just saying no. Expectations to celebrate the holidays in specific ways can bring up old trauma or family conflicts. For self care, consider outlining your plan for the season. Maybe ditch a couple of those parties. Speaking of self care, make a schedule of when you will do your shopping, baking, cleaning, and be sure to schedule time to take care of yourself.
Yeah, so a
Uh,
little bit of like discipline there, right?
yeah,
So for those that have been in the military, like discipline is actually a skill that a lot of the general population doesn't have nearly as much. Discipline's been a challenge for me. I'll just be honest with that. But setting some routine, setting some patterns, like I'm actually going to get up at this time. I'm going to, like, for those of us who experience, like, have been through some deeper depressions, I'm going to brush my teeth. I'm going to eat something healthier than just an F ton of cereal. Like it's those little steps, and that routine, what it does is it helps you move through those more challenging times instead of, and buoys you a little bit instead of falling down even deeper. And then, as you begin to come back out of whatever feelings you might be experiencing, then that routine can then be added to put more things in as you have the energy to, again, with care towards yourself. You're not pushing things, overexerting, wearing yourself out. Um, and it becomes the foundation. It becomes the skeleton of this healthy life, right? You don't have to be perfect about it. When I had my routines, I would miss it, and I would like beat myself up because couldn't even do that. Da, 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 da. Like that wasn't helpful. Um,
yeah,
but you can be kind and accepting, and realize that routine is helping you, and that you're helping yourself with routine. Like it's a way of loving yourself.
definitely. So if you choose not to celebrate at all, it's perfectly okay.
Mm.
Instead of spending the holidays the way you think you should, you might opt for another activity that you might enjoy. Like, this is a great time to go hunting,
Mhm.
right? So whether it's making a favorite dish, having a Netflix marathon, or packing the old truck and then going out and shooting you a deer, um, that can actually be therapeutic. Do something that you want to do. Do something you enjoy doing that is not stressful to you.
I
Okay.
forgot, but you're bringing it back up. I actually ended up doing a lot of road trips during this time. I like driving, and
Yes.
driving is a time it was meditative. There was something you had to do, so like, you had to pay enough attention. It kept you going, but You could also then, like, do the normal, like, drive safely but zone out and
Yeah.
like begin to process and feel things, and the unconscious begins to bring things up. You get ideas or like emotions come up and come through. That can be a healthy alternative as well.
And whatever alternative you take, just remember to let your intentions be known to your friends and to your family, so that there's no Amber Alert looking for you in the woods or anything like that, and they know that it's coming. Give them a heads up. Chris didn't just disappear for the holidays. He's taking a road trip to Zimbabwe or wherever. Um, he's catching frostbite in Siberia. He's almost caught
Mm, yep.
it. So, if you're stressed out about giving gifts, here's my go-to: don't give them.
Oh, for you, hold on. Your go-to is not just don't give. Your go-to is don't give them. Don't give them to me. Don't want to receive them.
Exactly. Boom. Done. But it's very common to get caught up in the commercialized and marketing for the holidays, and we can feel stressed out about spending money when we're already on a strained budget. Maybe you don't have enough money to put gas in the tank, and here you are being expected to buy a gift for someone. Honestly, if it's between you eating and buying a gift for somebody else, buy your groceries.
Mhm.
It should never even be a question, right? Advertisers are going to take advantage of people this time of year. So we have the ability to put it into perspective and remind ourselves that we are the ones creating the anxiety, and we are the ones that can reduce it. So if you absolutely must positively have to buy a gift, say you have a child, give yourself a budget. Don't go out and spend $500 on that PS5. I'm like, I'm sorry, kid, I could have paid rent. We're homeless, but hope you really like that. Whatever expensive gadget you got. Don't. There is no need for that. Take care of yourself first. Make sure that you have a roof over your head. Make sure you have food on the table, and then if you choose to spend a little bit of money on others, okay, right? But set realistic expectations, maintain a budget, be transparent.
So the concept that we're talking about here, and this works both financially and emotionally, right, is give from the overflow. Like,
Yeah.
so many of us are taught that um, something we do for ourselves is selfish. It's not. And that the giving to others and everything else at all times is a virtue. It's not. There is this concept that has been incredibly helpful for me, and I do share a lot, which is the giving of the overflow, right? You've got to care for yourself. It's putting the mask on first on the airplane if it's going down, right? And then taking care of others. But even when it's not going down, it's filling your own cup up, taking care of yourself, making sure that you have the resources mentally, physically, emotionally, financially, whatever that means. And then from whatever overflows from there, whether it's a little or a lot, give from there. And if there's nothing overflowing, then there's nothing overflowing. It's
Yeah.
okay. That is completely okay as well.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be a monetary gift. It's just, you can just, I love it when my kiddo makes a card. I love it when my kiddo makes crafts at school and brings you that spaghetti, macaroni, whatever necklace or whatnot. Um, to me, those are more valuable than if she were to actually, save up her allowance or whatnot and go spend it. I gifts from the heart tend to be good.
Actually touch the heart. Yeah.
Yes, yes, they do. You know, if you're feeling charitable and you can go to a food kitchen, pantry, whatever, help feed the homeless, shovel snow for your neighbor, help somebody out with a flat tire. There's so many things out there, you know. Or here's another one: pick up the phone,
Mm.
call somebody,
Hmm.
let them know that you are thinking about them, that you care.
It means a lot. I won't go
Yeah,
into the details right now, but this is definitely, it, besides the fact that I'm actually looking forward to what was previously a tragic day, this has been one of the most emotional roller coaster holidays that I've experienced, with the exception of what happened to my parents 14 years ago. And yet the number of conversations that I've had with people, and either them reaching out or me reaching out to them, has been off the charts. And that connection has continued to help, to not just buoy me and but to lift me up. But what I'm finding is it's not just me. Like my worry with a lot of these things is like, I just don't want to be that burden. I don't want to be like everybody's happy. I don't want to like bring them down. I'll deal with this and I'll have a conversation with them after the holidays. And what I'm finding is each time I reach out and I have like a real conversation, right? The ones where like you can feel the conversation in your heart, even if it's just simple words and everything else, you just know that connection's there. I'm continually in every one of them getting back like, thank you. I really appreciate it. I'm like, thank you. No, thank you. Um, but we're adding to each other, and each person on the end of that line is better.
Yeah, definitely. So, what if your depression is not caused by, you know, any of these other things? What if it's the lack of sunlight? Let's say you live in Canada or Alaska or just the northern states. Um, the days are shorter, the nights are longer. Less exposure to natural light can lead to increased symptoms of depression, right? Um, Fun fact, my in laws are from Michigan and they bought a place in Florida and they've since moved to Florida.
Hmm.
They spend their summers in Michigan, they spend their winters in Florida. And I believe my mother in law has fared the better for it
Hmm.
because this lack of sunlight is actually debilitating. It can be detrimental to your health and it can be something that pushes you into that depressive state. So, what can you do about it? Uh, to boost your mood and regulate your sleep, schedule outdoor exercise in the middle of the day when the sun is actually out. If you can, work near a window throughout the day. Even outfitting your home with warm, bright lighting can help improve your mood. And by the way, they actually have specific light bulbs because this is a thing
Hmm.
to set up around your house so that you don't get that the I call it the gloom blues because I tend to get that way when it's overcast for a few days
Hmm.
where I'm just kind of like I'm just like I feel like I'm in a funk, it's just like
100%. Now you can get either the light bulbs, which you can also get like these little light boxes and stuff like that
light boxes, yeah,
on Amazon, right? I've got a couple of them that I use because sunlight has a strong effect upon my moods, and
yeah,
so like knowing I'm just getting less sunlight, knowing that that's going on, um, I use them, and I find them very helpful and effective.
yeah. Find quieter projects that you can work on indoors, hobby, model building, that kind of thing, knitting, writing, taking online courses. SAD or seasonal affective disorder is a more severe of the winter blues, according to the researchers. The percentage of people in the US who struggle with SAD ranges from 1.5% in southern Florida to 9% in the northern states. Yes, Florida does get overcast from time to time. If you feel hopelessness, have suicidal thoughts, or changes in appetite and sleep patterns, talk to a doctor. Effective treatment for SAD include light therapy, talk therapy, and medication. So don't internalize all of this. It's something that can easily be addressed and helped. Are you feeling isolated? Um, While it's true that many of us have friends and family to connect with during the holidays, there's also the danger of becoming isolated. And I think this goes to what we talked about earlier. You could be in a party with, 30, 40, 50 people, if you're Mexican, 150 people, and still feel isolated, right? If you're predisposed to depression and anxiety, it can be really hard to reach out to others and it can be really difficult to feel connected. Um, I remember, and maybe there's something that happened a long time ago, and I'm just not aware of it. But I remember being a kid, and my parents, my parents and my uncle lived next door to each other, and they would have these very loud gatherings, especially come the weekend, where there would be tons of people, loud music, and that kind of thing. And I remember hiding in my room,
Mm.
just not wanting to participate, just feeling overwhelmed by everything.
Hmm.
And this goes to a very early age. I remember living in like a one room shack and hiding under the bed because there's too many people. You
Hmm.
know, I happen to be one of those weird kids growing up that I felt a little overstimulated when there was too many people, and I still get that way these days. When there's, when I'm just not feeling up to it, and there's too many people around, um, it becomes noise in the background, and it can be a little bit much. So, um, yeah, I can be in a room full of people and still feel not in touch with any of them.
100%. Yeah, I've definitely felt that plenty of times. And the overstimulation, that's something that you and I share. Like it can get to a
Yeah,
point where things just are seem and feel too much, right? And that can also tie in, again, this is another know thyself moment, but you know, where do you expend energy and where do you receive energy? Right. So like the main difference between an introvert and an extrovert, right? So going beyond pain, trauma, PTSD, and the rest of it. So you're getting to a point of emotional centeredness, you still have introvert and extrovert, which plays a role, which is introverts tend to gain energy on their own or in really small, intimate groups. And extroverts gain their energy in larger groups, right? And the other side of that coin is where you spend energy. So, introvert requires and spends energy and can become exhausted and even worn out if there's too many people around. And an extrovert, too much time alone, can exhaust them and they run out of energy, if you will. I tend to fit a little close to the edge between the two of them. So I need a certain amount of alone time. But if I do too much alone time, like it doesn't go the most fantastic for me. It again goes to avoiding isolation. Says the man who has, spent easily a couple of weeks alone and not talking to anybody and months on a property with very little connection to others at times. So we all have our little joys, but know thyself and like regulate that. What it's coming down to is not one or the other is better, but learn how to regulate it so that you are caring for yourself, but you're also getting the energy you need.
I find that if I spend too much time by myself without human contact, and I do come out of that cave, um, I forget how to speak.
Yeah.
I forget how to communicate with others, which is kind
Yes.
of kind of odd. It hasn't happened in a while, but I do recall having those experiences where I hadn't seen another human for at least a couple of days, and just kind of like tongue doesn't work, that kind
Yeah.
of a feeling. But
So you're not
um,
alone in that. Like I would feel that too. And I would also feel like, again, I tend to feel things in my body. I would feel like I was operating on one frequency and everybody was on another and they just weren't matching up. And it literally would take, if I was going to like do group stuff, it would take a good day, day and a half for me to feel like we began to line up and I was there.
yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's kind of like when you have a dog and you don't take him to the dog park. Every time he sees another dog, it's kind of like a threat.
Mm,
I felt that way.
yeah.
But if you are feeling lonely, remind yourself of other people, places, and things that may make you feel a little bit happier. Consider scheduling a regular call or a video chat with friends on a weekly or biweekly basis, such as what Chris and I are doing now, being in different states. Take advantage of other ways to connect, including sending out holiday cards, communicating with family and friends by phone, text, email, and social media. Uh, Calming activities such as reading, meditating, gratitude journaling can be helpful if you don't feel comfortable in social situations. Don't forget about self care. I think this is what we've been kind of harping on a little bit. We know the importance of balanced diet, moderate exercise, and plenty of sleep. But because there are so many distractions and stressors this time of year, we lose sight of some of the basic necessities. We need to take care of ourselves and pay increased attention to ensuring that we fulfill these areas of our lives and we get close as we get closer to the holidays.
Yeah, so to
So,
to think about that self-care thing, right? So, we are multi-layered beings, right? So you've got the mind and it's doing its stuff, and then we have the emotions and they're doing their thing, and then you've got like the body and everything else, and everything is intertwined. like the mind affects the body, affects the emotions, like all these things, and you move one and the others are affected. So when the emotions are a challenge or whatever else, like one easy lever is move the body. Like moving the body begins to affect those things. And because whether it's the supplements like vitamin D, D3 with K2, especially in the winter months, is great for the immune system, but also great for mood and everything else. Um, you want to make sure that your hormone regulation is at the right level so that your base operating system, your base body, your hardware, excuse me, is what I was trying to get at, is operating there. And that helps with the emotional stuff that's going on. That helps with the thoughts that are going on. Um, but if you let all of them degrade, you let the body degrade, the hormones degrade, the emotions degrade, the mind degrades, it's a deep, dark fucking hole that many of us have seen, and we don't want you in it.
Yeah. Try to stay out of that pit.
Yeah.
So, should you talk to a doctor? Well, if this is actually a question that's come through your head, the answer is probably yes. Okay. So, talk to your mental health professional or your primary care physician if you've been feeling anxious, depressed for more than a couple of weeks, or if the holidays are just long gone and you're still feeling it, if you're still feeling stressed, anxious, or depressed. Um, if you or a loved one need mental health care or support, the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration has a national hotline. Okay, it's 1-800-662-HELP, 1-800-662-4357. They do TTY as well. That's 1-800-487-4889. If you would like to find an online treatment locator, again, through the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, that website is https semicolon // findtreatment.samhsa.gov. That's findtreatment.samhsa.gov. Don't wait. Don't see if you feel better tomorrow. If it's been a few weeks and you're just not able to come out of the slump, give them a call.
Yeah.
Send them a
And
message.
if you
Want some
the
help.
thought goes in of like, not now, not me, then again, like begin to feel through motivations, right? There have been times when I would not do something for myself. I didn't care about myself enough. There was enough apathy, self-loathing, all the other things going on that I wouldn't do it for myself. But as I began to think and feel through, like, would I do this for my friend? Would I do this for my mother? Would I do this for my nephews? Would I do this for my sister? And I feel through that, like sometimes doing it for somebody else that you truly love and care about is a more powerful motivator when you get into those spaces. So if the answer is, I feel that way, but I can't, then what I want you to do is think about the person that you love most in this world, that person who just you would do anything for. And whoever that is, do it for them.
And again, this phone number, it's not just for people seeking help. If you're seeking help for somebody else, you can do so. It is available 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, English and Spanish. Okay, the callers will refer you to a local person that can help. Okay, so it doesn't matter if you're in Hawaii, Alaska, Puerto Rico, Washington D.C., all these states that are not states. You can still give them a call. They will help. They will help, and they will help find you help that is nearby. Okay, that is my presentation. I hope you liked it.
That's the presentation. So, how has your experience of the holidays shifted and changed over the years? Like you shared earlier, you're coming, it's just a couple of years ago that this shift in PTSD and beyond PTSD happened for you, right?
Right.
How are they for you?
Better, much better. I always attributed my holiday slump, if you would, to the inability to accept gifts. To me, it was a almost a negative feeling, kind of like the what you don't think I could buy this for myself
Mm-hmm.
type, or no, you shouldn't have. Really, I mean, you shouldn't have. You
Mm-hmm.
spent too much money, time, effort, whatever, and I didn't believe I was worth it. It boiled down to a self worth scenario for me. Um, and as I have been dealing with the PTSD and my self worth has actually come up, um, it's been a little bit easier to accept love, accept gratitude, um, and to accept gifts. It really has. Um, you know how you said earlier that think of that one person you love, and you know that person for me was my wife and my kid. They were the two people that really kind of put things into perspective for me. And so with that, I was able to bring myself out of the equation and just kind of say, well, I love these two people more than anything in the world. Do I want to be that person that has PTSD, that can be easily triggered, that they may fear for whatever response I might have? Or do I want to be something better?
Mm-hmm.
And the answer came back something better, thank God. And and with that, um, I feel I have become something better, and I feel that I am worthy of gratitude and acceptance. And accepting is still, not the top of my list. I don't have that joy of when you give a child the kid that they've been wanting, where it's like it means the world to them. But I do feel it. I do
Just
feel
to
now
do
where
that,
it's just kind of like,
uh,
it just touches the heart now. And I may not, or I may answer with a cocky, funny, whatever. At least in my head, it seemed funny. It's like, oh, you know, you could have just whatever. But um, I I'm okay now. I feel better about accepting things now. And on the giving part, I was always a decent giver. I try to find what people like or into, and what they could, you know, what they would like. And I would try to, you know, what's in my budget, what's within my means, what I could do for them. I would try to give in that respect. The hard part was the receiving.
mm,
And the receiving has gotten a lot better.
I'm glad to hear that. I really am. Um, just to give a little bit of hard time. Um,
Sure.
you said give a child a kid, and I'm fairly sure that you meant give a
My
child a
bad.
gift,
A
because I
gift,
mean
yes.
you can give a child a kid, and I love my nephews. And matter of fact, so I'm going to spend the
It's kind of like when you
holidays.
buy your dog a dog.
Get the dog a puppy. Exactly.
Yes. It's like,
um,
oh, okay, you're 8 years old. Here, have an infant.
yeah.
Take care of it. My
Learn
bad. I
early.
misspoke.
Uh,
Yes.
yeah, exactly. Which
I
is,
haven't been drinking, I swear.
yeah. Dun 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 dun. No vodka in that. Yeah. I'll share my experience. Like, I'm going, and this is how I spend most of my Christmases nowadays. I'm going to see my sister and nephews, and so after this show, I still have a couple package presents to wrap up, and then I'm going to drive down, see my sister, sleep there overnight, and then be able to wake up with the nephews in the morning. And I'm looking forward to it. I like their faces and their excitement and that energy in the same way. Like, I mean, this is another tip for the holidays or rough times. Was going through some challenging times a couple of weeks ago. And I was staying with my sister, and they got a new puppy, and this puppy is just so full of energy and love, and like it's a small, tiny little poodle something mix, um, and like you put it here, and it's like and it wouldn't stop, and it like you just like you couldn't. So like sometimes when you're around kids, not always, but sometimes when you're around kids, like you get that energy of their joy, right? And it helps, and so. I'm sharing that because I'm putting myself in a place and space that is both emotionally supportive for me, that I'm going to find some joy in for sure. Maybe a lot of joy, maybe a little bit of joy. We'll just play with it, and um, that buoys me up. Like we all buoy each other up. Like by being there, I know that it'll mean the world to my sister and my nephews as well. So whatever that is for you, whatever version, it doesn't need to look like what Rod's doing. It doesn't need to look like what I'm doing. It doesn't need to look like what your neighbors are doing. It doesn't need to look like what your family is doing. It doesn't need to look like what your friends are doing. Like, what is that for you? And that is what I want you to have for the holidays, because we're here. Like some people actually give a shit. That's exactly why Rod and I are here on Christmas Eve. Like we had a moment of a thing. It's like, should we do a show? Oh yeah. Yes, we're in. Right?
I'm not sure it was ever really a question. It was just kind of like, yeah, we need to do a show.
Yeah, yeah. And it wasn't we need to. We're doing one. Like
Yeah.
it feels right to be here. And it's not just to have a little fun with each other, although I enjoy that, and not just to hear ourselves talk. Though sometimes I can enjoy that as well. It's it fucking been there. Like truly, with my whole heart, I've been there. So has Rod, and we're here now, and that's what we want for you, 100%.
And I can't one up that. So that's beautiful, brother. Um, with that, thank you for spending an hour with us. And if you wish to do so, we'll be back next Friday, New Year's Eve. And
2 holidays in a row.
in a
Yeah.
row. Why? Because you're worth it.
Yes.
And we feel you're worth it, and you are worth it. So tune in next time. Same bad channel, same bad time. Peace.
Big love.